everybody. Can you hear? Okay, so it should say Holly Moore from Make Events on the screen. It doesn't because it's not working yet. So in typical live event style, there's a slight problem with my Mac talking to this screen. I do really want to have the presentation to be able to talk to you because it's got loads of pictures and stuff to show you, but I'll do a little bit of stand-up ad-lib until we get going because I don't want you all to walk off and leave me with an empty room. So good afternoon, Confex. Who's on day one? Who's just today? And who's been here for 2 days? Woo! Who's from Manchester? Oh, good. And then who's everyone London, everywhere else? So great. All right. Well, so yeah, I'm without the slides, the whole thing. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Might be doing my presentation without any slides. Okay. It is a really nice presentation as well, so we will have a good go. If we get working, guys, will you be able to stick it up for me? Yeah, it's not going up. Right, okay, brilliant. Right, just make sure you laugh at the right places, clap at the right places, cry at the right places, we'll be absolutely fine. So, okay, so I'm Holly Moore of Make Events, HM Events, and Anything is Possible. So this is the topic of the conversation today. So I want you to think about, what if anything was possible for you? What would you do? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Would you be able to imagine your dream career, your dream job, your dream side hustle? Can you imagine meeting your soulmate? Can you imagine being able to buy the Gucci bag and the Gucci shoes? You might already have all of this, but I want you to think about something that you really, really want that feels really out of reach. Is it working with that brand that you've dreamed of working with? Is it going to the gym? Is it losing weight? Is it going to travel to Australia? I just want you to think of one thing that you really, really want and keep that in your mind during this presentation. Okay, so this moment of being on stage at Confex during the pandemic was an image that I kept really clearly in my mind. I could see it, I could picture it, I could imagine what I was wearing, I could imagine my slide deck that we don't have. I could see how emotional I would feel. So I want you to just take a minute now and again try and imagine that thing that you really want to happen that you don't think is possible. So, what does Anything is Possible mean to me? It's actually one of Make Events' brand values and has been since 2016. With all our brand values at Make Events, they have an external meaning, so what it means to the client, and an internal meaning, what it means to us as people. So the obvious with Anything is Possible for a client is, the answer's yes, what's the question? Of course we can make that happen. But for us as people, this business was started on a dining room table with no borrowing, no investment, and I want that story to inspire my team. So we use that as a benchmark to encourage them to achieve all their goals in the workplace, but also outside of the workplace. But why do I believe so vividly that Anything is Possible is true? Because 15 years ago, my life was actually just an existence. It was nothing like it is today. So, if the stats are to be believed, 1 in 4 people will suffer with a mental health issue. And post-pandemic, this is getting even higher. I don't know if we have anyone brave enough in the room that would put up their hand that has suffered with any kind of mental health issue. Thank you. So 15 years ago, you couldn't stand up and say that. People would think you're a complete weirdo. And I'm really pleased that you felt comfortable to do that. So looking at you guys in the audience, we might not necessarily look at you and think you suffered with mental health now or right at this minute. And I did have some pictures to show you of when I was suffering, because again, I wasn't the picture that you would look at. So I had a mental health issue called OCD, and I had the rarer form of it called Pure O. Now, OCD is not about cleaning. It really isn't. You should see my house. It's one of the most misrepresented mental health issues in the world. If it is wrongly diagnosed by a GP, and that isn't their fault, there's just little education on it, it can lead to suicide, it can lead to depression, and at very best, it can lead to a life not lived. So, I was very, very lucky actually, because when I got OCD in 2006, I did have an educated GP and I got diagnosed immediately. But what does it mean? It means that the person with OCD is completely terrorised with thoughts on a 24-hour basis. These thoughts are so scary, they are in complete opposition to that person's personality. Imagine waking up every morning and for 30 seconds you feel okay, and then you remember. You wake up in cold sweats, you don't eat, you drink too much to forget, and these are all symptoms of OCD. It is exhausting, it's depressing, and it's really, really sad. So fast forward to 5 years later, and I'm told there's no cure for OCD, but I was at my wit's end. I phoned the Priory and I begged them to admit me. I begged them to let me come in as an inpatient, but they said no, because that wasn't the treatment I needed to get well. They put me on a group therapy program that was pioneering, and even till this day, it's only carried out in 2 hospitals at the Priory in London and Manchester. It was a totally scary thing to put myself into, but at this point it was life or death for me. I went into this group therapy that involved exposure therapy, mindfulness, meditation, CBT, and medication. And I literally attacked it like my life depended on it, because it did. In January 2011, the thoughts went, and I came off my medication. And since then, I've been OCD free. Free from an illness I was told I'd live with forever. So that was my first taste of anything is possible. The blinkers came off and I realised that I'd lived in a low level of anxiety and fear my entire life. I was a yes person. I'd lived in my comfort zone. I'd always done jobs that were below my skill set so that I'd always win, so that I would never fail. So as the realisation came forward, I've just beat something that everybody told me I couldn't. I thought, what is possible for me? I left my corporate job that I'd been in for 4 years with nothing to go to, and thought about my next move. I'd worked in a venue, I'd been a supplier, and I'd also been client side, but I'd never worked at an agency. So the first agency I ever worked at was Make Events. That obviously had a negative side, because a lot of the time I didn't know what I was doing, but also it gave me like no rules, and I didn't even know how people charged, so I could basically like forge my own path. So people often say to me, oh, would you ever sell Make Events? Like, what's the long-term plan? But hopefully you can see from that small story, Make Events is my best friend. You know, she is the symbol to me that anything is possible. And sometimes we fall out, and sometimes I hate her, but most of the time I love her. So let's fast forward to June 2020. I was broken. I was isolating on my own, none of my family lived near me, and trying to save a business on a laptop in my living room was really not my vibe. I was definitely not depressed. I know the difference between struggling with an issue that we were all struggling with versus a mental health issue. So I went to see one of my mentors, Paul Cheetham-Carrs. He's written a book actually called Taking Care of Business that I would encourage you to read. And he said to me, Holly, you have always waxed lyrical that you've started a business with no borrowing, no investment. So he said, take the loans, but try not to spend them. Because what I want you to think about is at the end of this journey, you've got the business through. He knew at that point I was really passionate about anything is possible. And he said, I want you to imagine yourself on the stage at the end of the pandemic, talking about anything is possible, not having touched those loans. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. January 21, we were in another lockdown, and I had 2 decisions to make. I either mothballed and got rid of as many of the staff as possible again on furlough, for example, or we put ourselves right out there again, and we did. I don't know if anybody watched it, the Make Events show, which was our virtual show, so you did watch it, brilliant. So the point of that was that Make Events have always been about the people, but we'd not had any opportunity to be face-to-face with anyone for such a long time. that this was about bringing the people to you and also to educate people on what a virtual experience could be. It grew our database by 40% and we kept 900 people online for 83% of the time. On that show, I don't know if you remember those that watched it, you might have seen that I announced that I was going to bring Anything Is Possible as a separate brand. And the reason that I announced it was, with my personality, if I say I'm going to do something or write something down, I have to do it. It's literally like tattooing it on my head. So, let's come up to the present day. How are we doing? Well, we're still here for one. I'm building an amazing team and an amazing leadership team. Don't know if we can have a show of hands from the Make Events crew that probably nervously hoping I get through this. Yeah, we're building a leadership team. We've got so many more products and services. And last week, if you haven't seen it on social media, we delivered the most amazing multi-day international conference for a dream client. So, rewind to 2012. I started Make Events from the dining room table with absolutely no contacts, just from recovering from OCD. So I wanted to make events, so the name was pretty simple for me to set up. And how have I kept this business going for nearly a decade without investment and also making it through one of the most challenging couple of years? I'm always honest and authentic, probably overshare a little bit. And you know, I believe, I don't know who works for an agency here. Who's in an agency? So, yeah. So if you work for an agency, I 100% believe you should be delivering amazing events, creative events, that's what we do. So how have we set ourselves apart? And that is providing the ultimate experience through our team. And I bang on at the team about it all the time. I felt if customers were paying for a service was what they were going to get. But it took me about 5 years to really get in my lane. And you know, when I first started, I remember looking at Liz and thinking, oh my God, I'll never be cool enough to do any of that kind of stuff. You know, and it took about 5 years, and I remember writing it in my diary and saying, I suddenly feel like I'm in my own groove. And I wish I had a picture to show you, but I started to dress in all the Pantone colours, which, by the way, you would never see me dead in on a Saturday night. But it became like my warrior uniform, and it was what I stepped into to go out and represent Make Events to the world. And this has taught me a lot. So I know a lot of you here, I can see a few faces there that work really hard on their personal brand. And what I would say to you is, don't rush. Like, your personal brand evolves. The more events you do, the more life experience you do, you kind of find out who you are. And I would definitely say it's only in the last 5 years who I'm like, do you know, I am who I am. Like me, don't like me. But, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have said that I did have a personal brand or an authentic one. So just think about that. Don't think that you need to know who you are straight away. The best lessons you learn are through the challenges, and if you don't learn something on a live event every single time, then you're not paying attention. So it was the beginning of 2020, I was feeling great, we were due to have our best year ever, and then the C word happened. I was stuck. I drank too much, I ate too much, I didn't move enough, and these kind of behaviours were not something that was going to pull the team forward. The team were looking at me for inspiration and I couldn't give it to them. They were frustrated with me and I was frustrated with myself. I had stared at a blank piece of paper for 2 months. I just didn't know what to do. On the top of the piece of paper, it said the pivot strategy. So one day, was probably drinking an Aperol on a Friday afternoon on my own, and it came to me what our marketing campaign would be. It would be called the pivot strategy. And if you follow us on social media, you're probably absolutely sick of seeing it at some point. We decided to be loud, bright, bold, positive, and whatever happened, whether we failed at the end of it, we would be remembered for being positive and giving inspiration. And then as soon as Boris gave us a phrase, we just coined it. So we did social Christmasing, we did staycation boxes, we did the rule of 6 dinner parties, and we invested in our brand. A lot of what we did wasn't actually profitable. I could have run on probably 2, 3, 4 staff, but I invested in a marketing team, in content, in graphics. And you know what? At that point, it wasn't about making money. I think you must have all realised in lockdown, for me, it was about having my team around me. It was about keeping people in jobs. And if that meant that Make events were less profitable or at the end we failed, I didn't want to spend that time on my own trying to work it out. I wanted to be with the team. And, you know, not the best business decision all the time, but sometimes you've just got to make the best decision for you. So we were loud and proud. And you guys, any that follow us on Insta, every single message that you sent me to say we'd inspired you, that was just like a big serotonin hit for me. So thank you to all those people that reached out. So if I had another tattoo, it would be the Maya Angelou saying, I don't know if you know her, still I rise. Every time when something hits me down, I will rise. So I thought I'd give you a few tips and tricks on how I make that happen. So about 5 years ago, when I did start to feel myself, I started to journal and write all my experiences down, personal and business. And what I shortly realised was every single time I had a challenge, I would, you know, write it down. It was the worst thing ever, and oh my God, I'm never going to get over it. And then another thing would happen, and I'd read my diary back and realise that that thing that was just so awful, I got over. And so I would encourage anyone that doesn't now to journal, because it allows you to build resilience. And every time you appreciate the fact that something's gone wrong for you but you've got over it, it builds your confidence and resilience to attack any problem that gets you again. Other tips that I've learned over the years is to understand yourself. I am not good with formal education. I didn't go to university, but what I have invested in is coaching and personal development for 10 years. When I left my corporate job, my salary for that first year before I set up Make Events was 18,000, and I invested in a coach at £80 an hour, because I knew that if I didn't invest in myself, I was never going to get over that 18, 20, 25,000. And it's just about, I was speaking to somebody about this morning. It's just about, you know, we go out and we'll go into the shop and buy cake and chocolate and a Costa and whatever, and that might be 20 quid or whatever. It's what you want to invest in, and for me, that was the biggest investment. Other things that I've learned over the years is I didn't get into fitness until I was 30, and it's about understanding yourself, that if I say I'm going to go and work out in a gym and do my own workout, I'll be so bored. So I invest in, and it does cost money, going to classes and PT, because I know I need to have my wellness to be good at my job. So before the pandemic, I wrote down 4 goals, which were, I have to remember them now because they were on the screen, which was I want to build brands and have people to run them. I want to inspire people that if they saw me on a stage, just one person might think anything is possible, and that I made them believe that. So this is what anything is possible means for me. What does it mean for my team, and what does it mean for Make Events? Because it's all very well having a brand value, but what does it mean to them? So I'm sure for a lot of you, you've done a lot of long hours, during the pandemic. And my team were doing 12, 14-hour days. They weren't putting their kids to bed. And I was like, how can I get them to still stick with me? Because we're 2 years in now. This isn't like the start of it. So I thought, if we hit a profit this year, because we obviously didn't the year previous, we made a massive 6-figure loss. If we hit a profit this year, 20% of the profit will be divided between the team, regardless of rank or what job role they're in. Because in my head, I was like, if I'm going to ask you to work 14 hours, if you just think the profit's coming back to me, then you're not invested. And because I did it the same for everyone, it allowed this real camaraderie in the office, where we know Elliot wants a camper van. Juliet probably wants some kind of Gucci bag. But it allowed us all to have that camaraderie. And when we do hit that target, which we will at the end of March, we can all celebrate together. The other thing that we did is I realised that, okay, you're doing long hours, but how can we manage our time better? Now, I'm sure that a lot of you know Juliet Tripp, who is one of the leading events industry coaches. So I had this idea that I would bring Anything is Possible as a personal development brand to my team. So you come and work at Make Events, and as part of your employee benefits, you get this Anything is Possible coaching. So Juliet came on board, and we did time management, we did goal setting, and we did proper play school vision boards, sticking and everything like that, because I wanted people to connect. Long hours, bonus, I can get that. And it was basically using all the tricks that I've used to be successful to instill onto the team. that's what it means to make events, and that's what it means for the team. So what does it mean for me, and what does it mean for you? Something I've been manifesting for about 3 years is that I would carry out our own personal development conference, our first ever ticketed event, called, of course, Anything is Possible. So, towards the end of this year, we will be doing our own conference, which will be empowerment, speakers, goal-setting workshops, party, cocktails, food, and it will be really everything that I have learned over the last 10 years and everything that inspires me in one place. I've traveled the world, I've been to Oprah's conferences, I've been to the Girl Boss Valley in New York, and we're going to bring everything together. The fact that we know we can organise a killer event and that we're obsessed with personal development and bring it together in one day celebration, and that will be to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. So, just to conclude, I stand here today with a business that has survived a decade with no investment and no borrowing. It's also survived a pandemic. I also stand here OCD free for 11 years, and I want that story to really inspire you. Think about the goal that you thought about at the beginning, because anything is possible. Thank you.
Holly, am I on? Holly, thank you so much. And I'm sure there are millions of questions, and I have the microphone. So who would like to ask Holly something? Somebody's got to ask, because this is the worst part of presenting, when you ask if there's a question and nobody puts the bloody hand up. Okay.
Oh, yes, we've got
yes.
that. I think am I supposed to put these on for questions?
Yes, then you can hear. This lady has moved seats at every single, I've seen you at every single one. You're very well committed.
Thank you for that, Holly. That was really inspiring. In terms of when you talk about, there's obviously a lot of unity between your values and the culture you have with the company.
Go on, sorry, sir.
I'll keep it on for everyone else. So yeah, in terms of obviously the values you have, obviously resonate throughout the company. How do you, I guess, assess when you're looking to grow your business if those people are going to share the same values, or how you, I suppose, not bring them around to your way of thinking, but it can be quite a big thing for people to open up and, I suppose, kind of look at those wider opportunities for them as a person. How do you, I guess, get that from people?
Did everyone hear that question? Yeah. So one thing that I do actually is really involve the team in the interview process. So say a more junior member of the team might actually end up interviewing for their boss, because, so for example, at the moment we've got a senior producer role, so we're going to let the producer that works under them interview them. We're obviously looking for experience and everything like that, but we're very open as a business anyway. If people have done due diligence on what we're like as a company, like we are quite loud. It's, you can imagine you can walk in and it's quite, we always say, they need to have the bants, which we can tell, because we do annihilate each other on a daily basis in the office. I mean, this doesn't sound very professional, but it's genuinely what this is like. I think what I've done in the past is ignored my gut instinct and seen a CV and thought, oh, they'll be amazing, they're going to be the lifesaver, they know more than me, they can help me, and ignored like the niggles about their personality. And I've done that so many times that now I would probably go with the personality, knowing we can train them on everything else. Bit of a standard answer, but you know what I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Right, the other end. Between my steps.
Hi, Hull.
Hello.
What would you say to yourself if you could go back to April, May 2020 with where you are now? What advice would you give yourself back then?
Oh, well, Heather, just to say, was a freelancer for me at the time when we dropped into lockdown. So, do you know what? I genuinely don't think I would have done anything different looking back. And as hard as the first 2 months were, especially for anybody else that isolated on their own, it was horrendous. I've learned so much. I would have said like COVID's the biggest leadership course I could have ever have had. Do you know what? I genuinely don't think I would have done anything different. And the bonds that I've got with people that work for me now or have worked for me, I'm really chuffed that one of the girls that we made redundant came back this week. And that was testament to the way she was treated within the business, that she wanted to come back. So no, I don't think I would. And I don't think, obviously nobody wanted COVID and everything that had happened. For me as a person, and this, I don't mean this to sound selfish, but it's been one of the best things in a lot of ways that happened to me.
So you wouldn't change anything, but what advice would you give yourself?
You're going to be okay, and you know you are going to be okay. Just keep persevering.
Hi.
Hi.
Where would you like to see yourself and your company in the next 5-10 years?
So I would love, kind of the path that we're on, what I'd love is that Make Events to have a leadership team, which we are developing at the moment. Again, another lesson I've learned is bringing talent up through the team rather than bringing talent in at that level. That I just feel that works better for me. So I'd love Make Events to be running, obviously, but me more overseeing it. And, you know, just, I'm obsessed with culture and brand. I would say the team are better at running events than me. They'll probably nod and agree. And that's what I'm obsessed with, so I'd like that to filter in. We've got the private party company, HM Events, which for me is just more, you know, like if an MD or CEO would do events for once their party. So it's nice just to be able to handpick like a select amount of lovely events to do. And I really want to get anything as possible on the road. Like as I don't think anybody's really doing it in the UK. I've been to some things and I think there's a massive gap. And off the back of that, maybe, you know, we're launching a podcast as well, actually, and merchandise. So that's like my, but all in the same place. Do you know what I mean? With the same values.
Thank you.
Again. There you go.
Sorry, it's just a very quick one. In terms of obviously everything which you've achieved to date, and I know you mentioned there were a couple of kind of milestones where you realised you kind of got over something or you've got another vision. When do these, I suppose, ideas or I suppose inspiration come to you? Or is it usually when you're around the team on a busy event? Is it when you're at home by yourself thinking about things? When does it? Is there in a moment which you generally kind of go for those ideas more?
When I have a bit of time off, to be honest, and just a bit of space, things will start to come to me. And I know at the moment, I mean, I am on a bit of burnout, and so I know my thinking won't be right. I probably just need a day off just to kind of think about things. A lot of writing, I'll just start to write stuff down. I've got like high performance planner that I use, and when I have time, I can, you know, like we were saying about the journaling, I can read back and I can see patterns. And so for me, it is literally time. Pre-COVID, I used to do it a lot more because I wasn't as lean on the team. So that for me works. Sometimes I will get mental ideas in the middle of the night, but the best ones when I've got time. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any more before we do?
Thank you, Holly. That was a really great presentation, even without the slides. You did well. My question is, when you were first starting out, how did you build up that client base? How did you start earning the trust of the higher level senior people, and not just with clients, more as well around your like mentorship team and the people that you build relationships with in the industry? How did you begin that process?
Yeah. So with clients, I had nearly gone into business with another girl, and at that time I was working on I wasn't earning anything. Basically, if I won a client, I'd get a percentage of the profit. And it didn't work out, and we fell out. But two of the clients, which was Late Rooms and McCann, wanted to work with me because I'd brought them to the business. So I said to Harriet at the time, and by the way, we are friends now, so I'm not speaking, ill of her in any way. I said to Harriet, because she said you can take them, and I said, well, can you email them, and can you let them know that that's fine and copy me in so it's all above board? So straight away I had Late Rooms and McCann, which was amazing. And then I'm trying to think what else I did. I literally got on the phone to loads of venues and pretended I had venue fines when I didn't. Just go, oh hi, it's Holly, no, remember me, I've set up this company. Just to start like the conversation going. My AV company that I've used for 10 years, I said to Richard, the owner, look, can I have some of your photos for my website? And I absolutely promise you, I'll give you the business. So that, because obviously I couldn't use any photos that I'd done previous because they were for other people. And then I got recommended by a venue to quite a big client called Fred Doan that owned Betfred. And I can remember, because I was so green, like literally the only celeb I'd ever worked with was Steve McDonald off Coronation Street. I was so green. And I turned up at Fred's house and it was just like massive. And I was like, I knew it was for his 70th. I was like, does he live in a retirement home? Because it was like a village. And then I got to the door and he came to the door. Anyway, and he'd showing me events he'd done in the past. And I was like, oh. And I said, look, he said, anyway, why should I use you? You've got no track record on your own. And I said, well, give me a chance. Let me do the proposal. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. And then he phoned me and he just said, you've got the job, don't tell anybody, keep it to yourself, basically don't pick it up. That was it. And then I think because he'd used me and he was like a millionaire, people in the Northwest were like, oh, well, if he's using her, then she must be good. And it kind of built up the reputation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so a lot of it is word of mouth.
Oh, wait 1 minute. Was that okay?
Yeah, so a lot of it is word of mouth.
Yeah, definitely word of mouth, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very, very much. It was brilliant, and you sailed through without your slides.
Oh, no.
True pro. So please give us up for Holly Moore.
Thank you.